Hi and welcome to the SharePoint XRM Better Together webinar. My name's Matthew Tan and I'm a Senior Consultant for OBS. I've been with OBS for about 2.5 years in the role of an XRM Specialist. Over the last 5 years I have been delivering numerous XRM solutions across various industries. For those that don't know anything about OBS, we're a Microsoft Gold certified partner. We have offices all over Australia and we specialise in delivering Microsoft SharePoint and Microsoft Dynamics CRM solutions. Just some quick housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to use the question and answer pane, which is part of your GoToMeeting panel, and I'll address them at the end of the presentation. So what we're going to cover today, I'm going to set the scene around why you would need a SharePoint and XRM solution. I'll go through a definition of what is XRM. It's a term that not many people are familiar with. I'll talk about the key differentiators between the two technologies, followed by a couple of examples of typical SharePoint and XRM sort of solutions, and then cover off when you should consider XRM, and then obviously go through some examples and some case studies around where they fit better together. So, a lot of the problems organisations face today is around the management of their data. So, you really can classify data into two categories. There's unstructured data, and they're things like images, audio files, video files, random documents, blogs, wikis, etc. And then there's also structured data. So that's where you might classify things to databases, records and fields, relationships between them, and maybe some business rules around what those fields do and how they behave and how they interact with other pieces of data. So that we define that as structured data. So, keeping that in mind, I'll come back to what the significance between the two in a second. But we want to cover off what is XRM as well. So, typically we describe XRM as a solution, and it's a term produced by Microsoft, and typically it involves implementing a solution using Microsoft Dynamics CRM. There are several different definitions for XRM. One of them is the X stands for extended, so as in extended customer relationship management, and the other definition is X can be variable, so anything relationship management. Things like partner relationship management, constituent relationship management, employee relationship management. Both of these definitions are referring to building any type of application on top of the Microsoft Dynamics CRM platform. Building an XRM application can take the form of customizing existing customer relationship management functions that are included as part of the product, or you could design completely new line of business applications that are not based on the traditional sales, marketing, or the service functions that are provided out of the box. So really, you can consider XRM as almost like a business process automation tool. One thing to clarify also is that it is not a replacement for SharePoint, and you'll see why that is throughout this presentation. Some other examples of XRM solutions, they can range from anything as basic as managing a list of customers, in the traditional CRM sense, but then you can extend that further to, fleet management, student management, course management, vendor management, risk management. There's even cow management. And while that might sound a little bit tongue-in-cheek, true story, there is a farmer up north in Queensland who RFID tags all his cows, and he actually tracks each and every one of them in his Microsoft Dynamics CRM solution. So, go figure. So, I've talked about CRM, I've talked about XRM. What are the differences? So, when people talk CRM, they traditionally refer to the marketing, the sales, customer service side of their business. So managing customer relationships, automating marketing, automating sales, automating customer service, tracking interactions, activities, etc. It's all very customer centric. But then when we introduce the term XRM, it really takes it to the next level where it's any team can be involved. It's not just your marketing, sales, and customer service team. It's your finance team, it's your fleet management team, etc. Any sort of relationships. So, you're going to have, you might have customers and they purchase products, and then you've got a product development team, and it's all about capturing, the full circle around how your business operates. So, going back on the previous topic of unstructured and structured data and introducing Microsoft SharePoint 2010, if we look at the two technologies side by side, you can see that you can do a comparison and see that the two are quite similar in nature, on face value, but if you look into it a bit deeper, you can see how different they are. So typically with Dynamic CRM, it's structured relational data, and with Microsoft SharePoint, you've got unstructured and semi-structured data. So for those that are familiar with SharePoint, they know what a list or a library is. We tend to refer to that as semi-structured data. It's a standalone list. It exists on its own, doesn't refer to anything else. Whereas in Dynamic CRM, it might be a customer, and then you might have many interactions with a customer. The customer might lodge complaints or cases, and you want to view those against it. So it's quite structured, relational. And then you've got in SharePoint, there's collaboration as opposed to in CRM, interactions and activities. In SharePoint, you've got information evolution, so document lifecycle management. Whereas in CRM, it's information generation and analytics. SharePoint has informal rules, so it might be notifications. Someone modifies a document that you created, you get an email. So very basic informal rules. Whereas in Dynamic CRM or XRM, you have formalized processes. So these are end-to-end processes. You create an opportunity, so a sales opportunity. You're going to sell some product. The first step is to meet the client. And then after you've met the client, you're going to put together a proposal, and then after you put together the proposal, you're going to present the proposal to the client. So that's a more formalized process. And then there's the whole enterprise search in SharePoint, which is all about searching across everything, as opposed to in XRM, where it's more data, query, and filter based. So why the two together? So we've got, most organisations have many different requirements, and if you look on the left and right of this slide here, you've got unstructured data. You want to broadcast and publish information. You've got different audiences, external to the process, internal to the process. You need to access the data, search, query it. So if you look at all of those requirements in a whole, none of them are really SharePoint only or XRM only. Rather the two together, playing to each other's strengths, make a better fit to meet all the requirements that an organisation may have. So basically they're even better together, and they cover all the breadth of capabilities. So if you look at further into that, the extensibility side of things, so they're both .NET technologies, and you can integrate the two. If you look at it as a platform, you can integrate the two using the .NET framework. The other side of the coin is the two products integrate with Microsoft Office, the Microsoft Office suite, Outlook, Word, Excel, all the familiar tools that most staff, most users are familiar with. So, using the two technologies is almost second nature to them because they're so familiar with the common Microsoft Office suite. We'll take a look at some SharePoint applications as well. So when using SharePoint for business process automation, it's typically more of a basic nature. So some common examples of SharePoint only applications are like leave application, expense claims, new user requests, and even logging timesheets. The common characteristics of all these, they're short-cycled, they're standalone or isolated, single entities, so they don't have relationships to other things. So an example, just so you have a picture in your mind, here's a typical leave application that most companies would use with it when they have SharePoint as their intranet. So user can fill in a leave application, they put in the dates that they're travelling or they're going to be unavailable, number of days, it calculates number of days, and then there's a status and an approval linking off that. So you might have an email saying, yep, you've submitted your leave request for approval, and then once it's approved, the manager clicks approve, and then there's another notification. So that's a great example of a standalone SharePoint application. So when would you use XRM then? So there's a few questions you have to ask yourself. Is the application data and process oriented? Is it based on the capture, storage, persistency, and analysis of data? Is the application structured? Does the application require a relational data model? So this is the core strength of the XRM platform, is the ability to support a relational data model and support it well. Is the application a natural extension of a standard CRM feature? So is it related to management of your customers? Is it another way of managing cases like claims or complaints? Those sorts of things. Will the application require one of the dynamic CRM-based services? So things like, if you're looking at a tool, you want it to have high user adoption, and one of those ways is Outlook integration. So dynamic CRM has excellent Outlook integration. Do you need to mail merge? Do you need to send outbound bulk email? Do you need to create workflows? Business process workflows? Do you need to query and report data? So these are questions you need to ask yourself when considering whether to use an XRM solution or a SharePoint solution or both. Do you need to have a 360-degree view? So typically this is most organisations want to see a 360-degree view of their customer. So things like if you open up a customer, you can see the address, but you also want to see all the contacts that you have at that particular customer. So you want to see a list of all the people. What are the interactions I've had with this customer? You want to be able to see all the different touch points within your organisation with this particular customer. You want to see any complaints this customer has made. You want to see any sales opportunities with this customer. So that's what we refer to as a 360-degree view of a record. So here's some typical XRM applications. You've got incident management, so the typical IT help desk or complaints management. Customers call in, they want to log a complaint or a case or an incident. You log it, then there's an associated workflow, and you might want to have workflows to escalate if it hasn't been dealt with after a period of time. You might have workflows to notify the customer that someone's attended to their request. Those sorts of things. There's event management, and I'll cover off an example of that in a minute. There's asset management and fleet management too. So many different types of examples. Really, the common underlying theme is that they're all complex line of business applications. So not your basic leave application. They're complex line of business applications involving several business processes rather than a single business process. So better together. So if we take an event management example, so I've got a couple of examples of how you would model, a business problem using Microsoft Dynamics CRM and Microsoft SharePoint. So the first one is event management. So we've got a few requirements here. We want to record event details. We want to send out invitations, manage collateral and handouts, perform mail merges, track invitees and attendance, etc. So typically, if we want to manage the event details and then everything that hangs off it, things like costs, activities, so actual campaign activities, the actual sending out of the email or the invitation to people, we typically would manage that in Dynamics CRM. Whereas with invitations, collateral and handouts, this is the unstructured data. So that will naturally sit into SharePoint, where you've got your document management life cycles, you've got your version history and check-in and check-out, all that sort of stuff. Mail merge, CRM. So all your data, your list of contacts, you've got your event details all in there. So naturally, the mail merge will be performed from out of CRM where the data that you need lives. And then you want to track invitees and attendance. So as they register, that's another another entity that hangs off your campaign, your event, is the who's coming to the event basically, and the RSVPs for that. You might want to store videos and photos. Obvious choice is SharePoint. Again, it's unstructured data. There's also evaluation forms. So after the event's been held, they fill in evaluation forms, and they might be scanned. So naturally, they would also fall into SharePoint again. Then you might want to record the evaluation. So you've entered these into your system. You want to track those against the event and the actual contact that you have in your database. So naturally, that will fit into Dynamics CRM. You've got interactions and success. So you generated all these opportunities and converted them, and you've realized revenue. So you want to be able to report on your campaign success. So that will naturally fit under Dynamics CRM. And then there's also the knowledge base, the how-tos of how to run the event. Again, SharePoint. So you can see there's a clear definition between the two of where things may sit. And really, the fundamental question is it data and process oriented? Is it relational data? Then it goes in CRM. Is it unstructured? SharePoint. We'll run through another example. This one has a bonus at the end where I'll actually go through an actual system that we've built. It's an insurance claim system for one of our clients. So hopefully that will be able to give you a better picture in your mind as to what a CRM and a SharePoint solution actually looks like. So again, the business problem is we need to track our case or our claims and manage those somehow with a solution. So the tracking of customers obviously would be in CRM. Customers lodging cases or claims. So typically you'd want your customers that either phone in or they might go to a website that they can log into and lodge this. So they'll do that through SharePoint, using the portal capabilities of SharePoint. Then customers might, after they've lodged it, they're going to want to track the progress of this case or this claim. So again, they're going to log into this portal to be able to view the status. The actual data might reside in CRM, but the actual status of it will be surfaced through SharePoint. Then they might want to upload images and documents, to support their case or their claim. Again, that will reside in SharePoint, and sign forms similarly. Now, we've got workflows that will automate escalation. So they've submitted a claim, it's sat on the queue for 3 hours, no one in the customer service department has picked it up yet. We want to set up a workflow that will escalate that to the customer service manager. So we do that in CRM because that's where the case information resides. All the interactions and the resolution, that's all within CRM. Any phone calls made to the customer, to gather more information or to clarify information will all be recorded within the interactions or the activities in CRM. Now, after the case has been resolved, the customer might want to view the history. So they might log into the portal and they have the ability to view the history of all the claims and cases they've made. Similarly, your customer service staff or internal managers might want to report on cases or claims, so they can also do the same but in CRM. So as I promised, what this looks like, I'll just show you some screenshots. So this is dynamic CRM, and we can see there's a list of all the cases, all the claims in the system. It has the full tracking, so you know who the customer is. You've got the policy name in there, the reason for claim, when it was created, what status it's at. All that's available. If we go to the next screen, you can actually see an actual case. It's got all the details in there. So this is, as you can see, this is all very structured data. On the left, you can see, alerts, compliments register, any payments that are made as part of this case, recoveries, any commissions paid. So this is an actual customer that we've implemented for, so this is all very specific to their business, but we've extended the functionality within Dynamic CRM to provide that capability. And we've also got the integration with SharePoint, so we had all the documents being stored in SharePoint, so on this screen here you can see that we're still in CRM, but there's a window into SharePoint, and we can access all the documents without having to jump to another application. So this is an example of the two technologies being tightly integrated. The user doesn't really care where it is, but they access all the information in one place. And then you've got your portal. So this is SharePoint now. Obviously, it's a login page. So after they've logged in, they get their landing page, their dashboard. So, hi John, they've got a welcome page, and then there's functions at the top there. So they can update their details, they can lodge a new claim, check status of the claim. So this screen here is built on the SharePoint platform. Doesn't look like a typical intranet because we've branded it in such a way. But you can get the idea. And then if they click on Update Your Details, they get presented with this screen. So as they update their details, that gets refreshed into CRM real time. And so you've always got one single source of truth between the two systems. So you're not doubling up on information. So hopefully that gives you a good picture of how the two technologies can work together. Some other examples though. So OBS has implemented a series of SharePoint and XRM projects. Obviously claims management in the insurance industry is one of them. There's also a whole host of other solutions that we've delivered, case management, grants management, sports team and coaching management, members portals, all sorts of different types of XRM projects and SharePoint projects together. So I've got some key takeaways. SharePoint and XRM are complementary tools. In most cases, it's quite clear when you have to address a business problem, which technology to use. And a lot of the times, if you've got structured and unstructured data, then the two would be used, in conjunction with each other. So SharePoint, use it for unstructured data, basic process automation, very short life cycles, whereas XRM used for structured data and more complex process automation. Do we have any questions? So if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the panel on the right. Alternatively, you can email them directly to me. I'll try and answer as many of them as I can now. Otherwise, there's a couple of other webinars that we've got coming up. There's a SharePoint 2010 Authentication Explained webinar next week, and then the following week there's How to Build a Scalable Enterprise Records Management Strategy. If you like this webinar and keen to know a bit more, you can go to the events page there and check out the other events that are coming up on the OBS calendar. Alternatively, you can, after you close the webinar, we encourage you to fill out the feedback form, and that gives you the opportunity to provide feedback on the presentation itself, and also to suggest any future topics that you might want to hear about. Okay, so I'll hang around for a few more minutes. If you've got any questions, feel free to type them into the Q&A box or the chat box, and I'll answer them for you. Yep, so someone's asked if they can get a copy of the presentation. Yep, we can make it available. We'll make it available shortly later on the website, as well as the recording of the presentation too. Got a couple of other questions. They're just comments. Thanks for the presentation. Cool. All right. So if there's no more questions, or if you come up with a question later, feel free to send me an email, and I'll respond to you promptly. Otherwise, thanks for attending. Look forward to the next round of webinars.